All right, we got 10 a.m. We'll call the meeting to order and we will rise for the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, at this time, we'll call a public forum and yep, come on up.
Good morning, Denise Weiss, Railton Township. Same thing that we've asked on several occasions. We're talking about cannabis. Our community, myself especially, because this affects me and my home. To have some light mitigation per our permit application and the ordinance, there is some light mitigation for certain people, but not for others. And this just isn't fair. This isn't right. This isn't right for what we're dealing with in our community. Per the Minnesota statute 16B.328, light pollution as their definition means the shining of light produced by a luminaire above the height of the luminaire and into the sky. There is lights that are being seen 6 miles away. We can see them at the Walmart parking lot. This is not fair to us for residents that we can read a book at 1 a.m. without a yard light. There's also some other statutes here as far as light pollution. Now, we filed a complaint. We did it the proper way. We showed up for the planning and zoning meeting a week ago not last week, but the week before on Tuesday, and it was canceled. You look at our planning and zoning board meetings, and out of 11 months, 6 times it's been canceled. I mean, that's like over 50% of the time you guys aren't holding the meetings, and it's not because we know that there's issues. Why have a planning and zoning if you're just gonna cancel it? I don't understand how you can make it for some people and not for others. I don't know what it's gonna take, a lawsuit, going to the news media. What will it take so that you guys can that you guys notice residents who have been living in the community for years, long before this ever was introduced, to protect us? It falls on you guys sending it to the planning and zoning, somebody making the motion to be able to do that. Because I don't believe they can just go rogue and do it on their own. So this lies with you commissioners. I'm gonna leave the statutes with Deb between the rules and the Minnesota statutes. And I don't know if this goes to Reese or how you file complaints or what you do, but you guys need to look at this.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else for public forum? Anybody online? Nope. All right, we will move to adopt the agenda. Is there any revisions or additions?
Yes, Mr. Chair, members of the board. We have an addition to the minutes of boards, committees, and correspondence, just a draft of the HRA EBA minutes from November 26th. A updated information for consent agenda item number 5, the recorder new hire. The name of the candidate is Tara Morehouse, and just adding that information in there. Regular agenda item 1, technology committee report, additional information, the draft technology minutes from November 25th, 2025. And then regular agenda item 3, the subsurface sewage treatment system ordinance update, just some visual documents to go along with it.
Mr. Chair?
Yeah.
I have one addition I'd like to put on there if possible. Under 3, regular agenda 3A, just a brief discussion about a fraud at the state level, not at the county level, but at the particularly HHS and some of the reports that we've been getting in media. So.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, I'll move as amended.
Okay. Got a motion by Ludwig,
I'll second.
second by Waldham. Is there any other discussion on the agenda? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same thing. Approve the minutes of the November 18, 2025 regular county board meeting and summary for publication.
I'll move that.
Okay, motion by Holland,
I'll second.
second by Waldham. Is there any discussion on that? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same thing. Acknowledge minutes of boards, committees, and correspondence. Pine County Surveyor's Monthly Report, November 2025.
Ludwig will move.
Okay, got a motion by Ludwig,
I'll second.
second by Holland. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same thing. Consent agenda.
I'll move consent.
Okay, we got a motion by Nelson on the consent,
I'll second.
second by Holland. Looks like I'm gonna earn my money today signing tobacco applications. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same thing. All right, regular agenda, technology committee.
You want me to start?
Yeah, you can start.
Okay, I'll take the mundane one first. We talked about some server, our disaster recovery servers are end of life. I think are they past end of life? Anyway, they're hanging on and we do need them. They are in the budget. So we at the tech committee approved that. And then we talked about some kind of exciting stuff. It's there's a AI program. It's actually got a name called EVA. So if you call, and I don't know, I think most of us have probably talked to an AI phone system, and if you talk to one early in their development, you probably were frustrated. If you talk to one now, you could probably hang up and scratch your head and say, was I really talking to somebody or what was that? So this appears to be the latter. But as we move forward, we're down to one front desk person right now in the county. And it's hard for me to imagine that one person can if you get there, for instance, right after Veterans Day, if you get there in the morning and you have to return 25 calls, that takes an hour and a half of your daytime just to get to where you would be if you were starting. If we had an AI system that could have directed probably a third of those calls and got people their answer right off the bat, even though it was a holiday for us, it's not for people that are looking for answers. And then the rest of the people could have a conversation and know where they needed to call when people weren't on a holiday. So, but the big thing is, I believe it's about 260 some calls a day that we expect one person to answer, and then that of course rolls over to other people. But what we're hoping that this AI program will be able to help alleviate some of that. But really what we're looking ahead for is in 2027, if we look around at what other counties are looking at for hiring more help, I don't see a way. It's been suggested that we would need probably an additional, is it 10 people, Becky, to fill all these positions, and I don't see a way that we're ever going to afford that. And if we can, develop this AI program into something that could handle, um, probably, a tremendous amount of that work, it'll really help us in 27 and beyond.
Yeah.
Help us now. But I think really in the future is what we're looking for.
How long does it take to set that up in our system?
It's a good question, Matt. Becky's gonna have to help me on this one, but,
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the board, Becky Foss, Pine County Health and Human Services Director. I do want to point out that Andrea and Greg from TIPCO are also online with us, and they are the ones who are in charge of EVA, for lack of a better word. But it takes about 3 to 4 months from our conversations with them to set up EVA to where we want it to be, where it can handle calls, more than one caller at once, can understand and respond in various languages to callers, and also helps with the eligibility workers with interview, the rights and responsibility portions of their interviews with clients, which would be a tremendous help as we're now implementing the first changes to SNAP that went into effect November 1st.
Do we have to troubleshoot it ourselves if there's issues, or is there support, or how does that work?
There is support, and we are not the first county to adopt this in Minnesota. And so there's people who have blazed the trail, and we just get to kind of follow their lead, which is nice.
just to follow that up, Matt, Stearns County, St. Louis County, Olmsted County. There might be others, but those are the three I remember, and they're fairly substantial counties, and, we know a lot of people from those counties, and they've had good luck with it so far.
Okay.
Before you go, Becky, I can't remember what it was, but it was something patients' rights or clients' rights.
Clients' rights and responsibilities.
Yeah.
Yes.
Do you want to just elaborate on that, that this is official to do that, right?
Yes, it is official to do that. And then EVA captures a verbal attestation, and it can save 20 minutes of an eligibility worker's time as they're going through the process of determining eligibility for a client. And EVA, what's so neat about this, if a client doesn't think that they need to follow through with that portion of the interview and hangs up, EVA will call them back 2 times, I believe, and then capture that verbal attestation for our auditing purposes.
Okay, yeah. And like she said, that's like a 20-minute process. I think minimum 15 of just reading this rights thing. So, and that's legal to have it do that, so that was a big thing, so.
It does, it's not free.
Cheaper than a-
It does cost money.
Cheaper than a person.
But it's cheaper than a person, and that, we don't have to buy health insurance, and we're not doing it to, supplant a whole bunch of people.
No.
We're doing it as a preventive measure to help out the staff we have now. And, as changes are coming and people are anticipating what, we're gonna have to have people do, we think there's, a lot of hope for this.
Yeah, and as you can see, like Steve said, it's not, it's not free. It's about a half of a employee though. And we anticipate, I mean, Becky's already slashed quite a few, and then maybe that's a bad word, but, thin down a lot of her support staff as well. So it's more like a support staff that can just deal with a lot of the, just answering the phone essentially. So, hopefully, that's the plan, and the first year, is 39,000, and then the year after that is 34. So there's a little bit of first year implementation, so.
Are you looking to approve this today?
Yeah, I think you want make
Yeah.
a motion,
I'll make the motion.
and I'll second it. Is there any other discussion on that? I think all we're doing is that, right? We don't have to.
No, that
Yeah.
should be the only thing. The other stuff's on the budget.
Yep.
Hey, could you describe the motion again, please?
Motion to approve the EVA AI powered.
Software, program, that's specifically geared to, help the front desk at HHS.
Is it free?
No,
Oh, what was
You
the
weren't
cost?
listening?
it's like 39,000 for the first
39,000.
year,
Okay,
and it drops down after that.
all right. Got it. Thank you, Steve.
Just like we stated before, the first year is 39,400. The year after is 34,020.
You
And
said,
it's in the minutes right here if you wanna look.
gotcha, thank you.
Same
And then you
thing you
said,
got.
Stearns and Olmsted County were two counties that got good luck?
Olmsted and St. Louis
And St.
counties.
Louis. Thanks.
There are some RJJ, but
Yeah, no, that's plenty. Thank you.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
All right.
Opposed, same thing. Okay. We'll move on to the introduction of the environmental services manager.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I'm excited to introduce you guys to Aaron Gustafson, our new environmental services manager. I had a brief synopsis of his background in the agenda request, but I'll let him kind of take it away.
Sure. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner Moore, for having me. And Kelly, my administrator, for having me as well. Nice to meet you all. My name is Aaron Gustafson. I'm the new environmental services manager for Pine County. It's my third weekend, so I'm just getting my feet wet. But yeah, a little bit about me. I'm from Carlton County. I actually live up in Wrenshall, Minnesota, just off of 23 there. Previously, I worked for St. Louis County and a couple of DOTs, MnDOT and WisDOT. And I'm also the chairperson of our adjustment board for Carlton County as well. So happy to be here. Thanks for having me. Excited to get started and working with you all. So
Welcome aboard.
yeah, thank you.
yeah.
Okay, and how's the test? What questions do you have? Awesome. Well,
Alright.
thank you.
Yeah, nice to meet you.
I
Thank you.
appreciate it. All right. Number 3, subsurface sewer treatment system ordinance update.
Yes, so Mr. Chair, members of the board, Kelly Schroeder, County Administrator. I'm gonna kind of take this one and I first want to describe visually what we're talking about. Just so that you have an idea of the situation that we have been looking at. So you got those visual slides and they're also on the screen. So Minnesota Rule 7080-0100 subpart 3F states that any new lots of record created after January 23rd of 1996 must have a minimum of 2 soil treatment areas that can support a type 1 septic system. So a type 1 septic system is what you see the visual on the left, which is a mound system. And a type 1 system could also be a drain field in the ground, but we're specifically talking a mound system with this one. So a type 1 mound, you have at least 12 inches of good soil before you hit a limiting condition. Okay, so that's a type 1 system. And the rule says that any new lots have to have spots for 2 of those. However, throughout Pine County, a significant portion of the time on existing lots, we are installing what's called a type 3 system, which is the other visual that you got up there. A type 3 system is also a mound. However, the limiting condition is at the ground surface. So in the type 1 system, you are adding at least 24 inches of clean sand for that system to work. Where in the type 3 system, you're adding 36 inches of clean sand for that system to work. That is the difference between those 2 systems. But Minnesota rule says that new lots can only have have to support that type 1 system. In Pine County, this becomes a problem though. So just a history on existing lots over the last 3 years. You can see the systems that we installed. The blue ones are type 1 systems. The green ones are type 3 systems. So it's a significant portion of the time on the existing lots of record, we're putting a type 3 system on it.
If I remember correct, Kelly, there's some old type 3s out there already for us.
So
Older than
type 3
that.
systems were originally considered experimental. Folks didn't know if they really would work, but now we've been doing them for quite a long time and they seem to be working just fine. So when we get presented with this requirement for lot splits though, septic designers have to go out and they need to find 2 spots on the new lot that can support a type 1 septic system. So this is just an example of what happens currently. The people want to build a house at that little yellow star because that's got a nice overlook to this pond and things. However, the septic designer goes out and starts putting soil borings down and they continue finding not 12 inches of soil before the limiting condition. So in order for this 5-acre lot split to happen, that designer continues putting soil borings down to try to find it, because otherwise currently the lot split just can't happen. So a lot of times that designer will continue through the lot and they'll, for example, finally find it in that lower left corner. And so life's good, they can submit that documentation and we approve them to split the lot out. But yet in the end, the people are still building at that star and the people are not going to have a 500, almost 600-foot lift line out to their mound. So they put in a type 3 system anyways. So it's very silly to go through all of that work to try to find a site for a type 1 system that we're not going to use anyway. So,
Right.
and they're not required to use. Just to be able to create that lot, we had to show that it could potentially. Question, Matt?
Yeah, why, so we do it already. So what are we gonna do? Just change our ordinance to say they're accepted and we don't have to do a variance? That's right. How do you do that?
Yes, so the zoning board put together in August a suggestion of some language so that we don't have this silly little exercise that's been happening. So the zoning board put together a suggestion that within our septic ordinance, we have an administrative variance procedure where in certain circumstances, we can approve new lots to be created that don't have 12 inches of good soil. And so what the zoning board put together was if a lot is unplatted, so it's not, it's a 40 that we're splitting into 2 20s. It's not like a huge subdivision. If it's unplatted and the new lots between 2.5 acres and 4.99 acres, as long as there's 60% buildable area as demonstrated by a wetland delineation on that lot, the zoning board suggesting we could just approve that. And that's between 2.5 and 4.99 acres. They suggested if the new lot's more than 5 acres, we would just be looking at if it has at least 1 acre of buildable area. And so I just so the MPCA has a few other changes throughout the ordinance they want us to see. So I'm going back to the zoning board in December here to discuss those changes. But I just wanted to present this language to you guys and make sure, get your feedback on it. If this makes sense, if you'd like to see different language from the zoning board, because after that December zoning board meeting, then we'd be scheduling a public hearing and getting this adopted because we do have some subdivisions actually waiting for this hopefully to get approved. I just want to run it as efficiently as we can.
I think I understand, but I was confused on something. I'm confused why somebody keeps potential spamming me here. But, did I read that and I just heard you say, if you got 20 acres, if you have 1 acre of buildable land, you're good?
If it's a 40 and I want to split 20 acres out and you don't have 12 inches of good soil, as long as you have 1 acre of buildable land, we would give you the administrative variance.
Okay, but if you got a 5-acre lot, you need 60% of that lot to be buildable?
4.99 acres or less, right? You'd need 60%.
Which is 1.5.
So why wouldn't they be the same?
That's a great question. And that, you know, that's one of the pieces that I would like some feedback on, of would you like them to be the same? You know, the zoning board felt like once you get to a smaller lot, the stakes are a little bit higher. And so that's why they wanted to require that wetland delineation, because we know that there are things that don't show up at the wetlands inventory that turn out they are wetlands. So they wanted that wetland delineation, and they wanted a little bit more space, because once you're at those smaller lots, you've got, you know, it just gets a little more constrictive.
So it will help me. So let's say you had one, say you had two systems. How far apart do they have to be? It's like if one fails, you have to, you know what I mean? Is there a distance they have to be?
Right, so they can't impede on each other.
So they could basically be just not so far apart.
Right,
Okay,
yeah.
make
because-
them the same then, I think.
Well, so what happens if you got a small little lot? And you're already on your second mound system. And that fails. Then what are you down to putting a holding tank and having it pumped every week?
There are other systems, like a type 4 performance system, where you can make them smaller, or maybe you just end up with a too small of drain field and you're doing some time dosing. I mean, there's options. They're more
that's
expensive
beyond this.
options, but they're not, yeah. That's a reality that's faced today.
So,
Roger, you're a designer. I don't wanna pick on you, but does it make sense that if I got 20 acres, I only need a acre, but if I only own 5 acres, I need 1.5 acres?
Not really. I mean, I think consistency would be
Yeah.
in the ease of, you know, people that are either interpreting it or going to be applying. It's like, you know, these wonky rules for different things. Okay, so I would suggest that we're just making a blanket 1.5 acres, you know.
Yeah.
You think now,
If septic system's a septic.
maybe go back to a question that you had, Matt, about the size of a system and an alternative system. So the footprint, the actual footprint of a system. The typical mound system for a 3 or a 4 bedroom house is gonna take about 1/10 of an acre at the most. So you think about 1/10 of an acre, and you're gonna have an alternate, another 1/10. And then they're gonna need to build, you know, their house and their lawn and.
You gotta have a well.
So reasonably, you know, you think, oh, 1.5 acres is not very big, but it actually is kind of big when we're talking about systems that take 1/10 of an acre. So, so I think that's reasonable. Yeah. This is probably a good, we've got a lot of places that our development is impeded because of the 12-inch rule. That if you so happen that it was already a parcel of record, it's not a problem, you know, but we just don't want to throw the gate wide open to, you know, we want to build some safeguards. And I think that this still does. Maybe a question that I would have is, so we have the 12 inches. Is there any minimum as far as buildable on that? We
Currently,
really,
we do not.
we have a 0, you know, so if you found 1/10 of an acre, well, 2/10 of an acre, you need technically 2/10 of an acre off of a 40 that you're going to split somehow. If you found that and the rest of it is all wetland, you could still do that split. Well, you know, and this is maybe, I'm not suggesting, maybe we want to go to the point where doesn't matter if it's 12 inches or not, we still need to have some sort of buildable, you know, in our ordinance. Now that's maybe going a bit beyond, but I'm just throwing that out. Because we're not creating more land. The land is getting split up into smaller pieces. It's not going the other way. And we need to be thinking about what's going to be happening down the future we want more development. But we need to put some guardrails on that. Just something that maybe I thought about that maybe to bring back.
That's a good one.
I don't know how that's gonna impede. I just can't think of any situations that I've run into that having that in there in general is gonna impede unless you've got a platted situation. And then plats, they fit in a whole different category anyway, so we're not really talking about
Right.
that.
Yeah.
I think if it's an acre and a half, it should be an acre and a half for everybody. You know, if that's in this particular situation, just so our people don't have to explain, well, if you had, more acreage, you only need an acre, but since you only got 5 acres, you need an acre and a half. It just seems a little bit easier to explain to people.
What do we think about the idea on those smaller lots to require the wetland delineation? Just, and you're only requiring it if there's already 12 inches of good soil, you don't have to worry about it. Because then we don't have a question of if it's wetland.
It's what if you only have one spot though? Then what are the options? You can't, if they want to build, do they have can they try the type 3 and then go to a holding tank if they have to, or what? I mean, would it just stop them from using the lot?
If they only have one type 1 system
Yeah.
spot,
Why can't you have another system style if that one fails?
right, you could, and you may end up with the other system style. Yes, this is just the requirement for creating the new lot.
I got something, Mr. Chair.
Mhm.
We have a small development right now that wasn't even in the wetland map. And just, it got delineated and it got shut down and it got stopped. Can we have some kind of language? If it's not even on a wetland map, why would we go have staff start a delineation? Because if it's not on a map, it's not on a map. I mean, we've already established that. The government has already provided that information. Millions of dollars of study to not only determine that, but, you know, to print the maps, document the maps. That's what's happening right now.
So to be clear, the maps are not the be all end all. The actual site is what determines whether it's wetland or not. The maps are just a tool.
Well, then I guess consistency to where if one person can just have their property moving forward with development, land sales, houses, families, businesses, because it was just simply determined, well, it's not on a wetland map, so you're good to go. But then some consistency, I guess.
Did they do some-
Why have a
did they do
map? Why have a
borings?
map?
Did they do borings on that site?
Not on the ones that just
Right.
were approved by simply going off of a map.
And I think some of that consistency that you lose is because we have such a disjointed zoning jurisdiction in Pine County.
Yeah, I could give you that, yeah.
So, Mr. Chair, a question, and maybe in, kind of following up the yours and tying together. So when if we're gonna have the 1.5 acre buildable, requirement in there, for less than 12 inches, or well, for anything really, if we're thinking about that. Who makes that determination? That is staff that goes out and makes that visit, I'm assuming. And at that time, when they're determining what is buildable, I'm assuming that they're gonna do a site visit. They're also going to maybe consult if there is a wetland map. And so are we being really redundant in asking another agency to have a first look, second, third look over this? And I'm concerned that we're relegating authority to a department that we, you know, I don't, that may not, they're not looking at it from a septic standpoint. This is a septic ordinance. And that's what we're dealing with. So,
right.
so I'm thinking if we go with the 1.5 acre and we rely on our staff to make that determination, I don't know that we need to have that delineation.
So currently with minor subdivisions, staff rely only on those wetland or those soil boring logs that come in. We are not doing site visits for all of these subdivisions. And so that could be a process that we put in place. It just will be an additional step of that subdivision process. Because we are relying on those licensed septic designers to provide us the correct information.
Well,
So-
and those trained people they're not gonna be doing borings in wetlands. Cause that's illegal. I mean, they can, but you know, though, it's gonna show that type of vegetation and all those, so technically their license is in jeopardy if they're gonna be submitting borings that are saying this is okay and it's in a wetland.
Yeah.
So for this particular change, would the real thing that we need to take from the county board back to the zoning board is that we think we should be consistent, and I kind of hear 1.5 acres would be the probably most comfortable position we're in.
I'm very agreeable to that. Consistent across the board with,
And then I think the rest of, you open a whole can of worms, but we're, the one thing that we have countywide is our subsurface, our sewer ordinance. And so anybody that sells a house or the property transfers, it has to go through that process. So many other things can happen and we don't have control over every township zoning. But we do, unless they've done whatever to take it over, but we are the sewer ordinance people. So I think in that respect that this is
Mr. Chair.
what we got.
So like, I don't know what exactly which one JJ was talking about, but is there in the septic plan, like you're gonna have weird sites at times, right? That, let's say they're really, you can't determine whatever. So is there a variance you can use then, or is there a way you can put a system in if it's hard to tell if it's one or the other? I mean, what do you do?
When you say it's hard to tell whether it's gonna be a type 1 system or a type 3 system. So our septic ordinance currently provides kind of a process on how to determine when it's like the designer and the county have differing opinions.
Mhm.
Or the two designers have differing opinions. There's a process already laid out in our ordinance, whether that's the county just has to decide or like a soil scientist comes in. So there's already kind of those dispute resolution processes built into the ordinance.
I'm assuming there's a variance process if somebody comes in and they got two superb sites for sewer, they got a place for the well, they got a place for the house. But on that 20-acre piece, there's only 1.39 acres of decent land that there would be a variance. That would be
Right.
what I would
Considered.
considered, yes.
And I think we're maybe getting off track here.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, and this just provides the administrative, the easy way to do it.
Right.
There's always the true variance process to do it.
But if they meet this criteria, an 1.5 acres at least, then you got 2 sites and a building site, you're golden.
And that's what we're looking for, is just some consistency, right?
Right.
All the other stuff is maybe for something else. So is that, does that make sense, to everybody?
I think for now, and then it's gonna go to the zoning committee and then we'll have
And
a
then
public hearing.
Okay, you're good?
I'm good, thank you.
All right, we'll go to 3A, Commissioner Nelson.
Okay, great. So. You read the Star Trib, you read Epoch Times, you read some of these national papers, and they're talking about, you know, the fraud issues in Minnesota and our, you know, with our governor and his departments and such. And particularly the latest one, the US Department of Revenue and this finding this fraud, you know, with tax credits. And then it ties back to, you know, some of the programs that were state programs and social services. And so then recently Minnesota, they froze a bunch of these people that were getting benefits because their names showed up. Whether they were actually involved in the fraud or their names were stolen and they didn't know anything about that. You know, so both things are happening. And this was like, I don't know, correct me if I'm wrong, within the last 3 weeks or something like that. And then there was a question, should the names be released? And no, they said, Minnesota said, no, we're not going to do that. Okay, so I will grant you that primarily that's not happening in our county, that we're not the, you know, those names and whatnot, but they were provided to all the counties, my understanding. So maybe Mike, and I'm not, to our HHS director, was Pine County were any of those names, those numbers, come back to Pine County at all? That they've got to work through that? You know, and I'm not really trying to put you on the spot per se, but
Good morning. Becky Foss, Pine County Health and Human Services Director. So without having more detail, I'm not sure exactly what you're referencing. And so I would say it was, we have not had a conversation about this. So this is definitely, I'm doing my best to navigate this on the spot. I will say that a couple months ago, Pine County HHS received a list of names of individuals supposedly receiving services related to the housing.
yeah, right.
And that so we were aware of that. That doesn't mean that they were fraudulent, but maybe we're receiving fraudulent services from a provider. And maybe they weren't, right? Some of the names of the providers on the list are well known to us and well known in our community, if that's helpful. I think with some of the bigger fraud schemes you see out there, what's important to note is that they are individuals mimicking medical providers, right? And they are not necessarily coming into our local health and human services agencies wanting to be on SNAP or Medicaid. They are taking, I would say, advantage of some of our most vulnerable populations, unfortunately, which is very, very sad and quite despicable, to put it bluntly. And acting like providers, they then bill medical assistance or well, in those cases, it was medical assistance and got paid for a service that they did not deliver. And that was caught on to. And then there are a list of services right now that DHS, that service, the housing support services or housing stabilization services, that's no longer a benefit that can be accessed. They've terminated that program due to the fraudulent activity. And honestly, if I, as the director, think a program is going to cost $2 million and all of a sudden it's costing $100 million, you need to go back and look at what went wrong there sooner than what happened. So that is a problem. Just want to be very clear about that. The other set of services that are being provided, I believe there's 14 on the list. We do have some local providers who authorize those services. Again, providers we know. I've seen firsthand providers struggle when they are following all the rules dictated by Medicaid, it's sometimes hard to make a living. And we even had a mental health center closed down back in 2013 because the money is difficult. It's difficult to stay afloat. And I'm not sure if any of that is helpful.
No, I mean, we've got the fraud issue. I mean, our state has been defrauded millions, billions of dollars. And yet, and so, I mean, that's a victim, but we also have these victims who are unscrupulously, their name they've been used as pawns,
Yes.
you know, and so I didn't know how much of that is actually trickling down to Pine County specifically,
Mhm.
you know, if we have a number of people that you know, are victims, so we would say in Pine County. And you know, I know we have a fraud division, you know, that's been in place for years, you know, and you know, this seems to be a different type of fraud that's happening, you know, than what we've traditionally looked for as far as
Agreed.
fraud. And
Agreed.
so, you know, we can't be doing the state's job for them, but maybe we have to, you know.
Then I want to get paid for it. I would say, I know what you mean. And in other conversations I've had with this type of fraud that we're seeing, where we see sometimes it being stopped pretty efficiently and being flagged, is when our clients are receiving maybe SNAP, Medicaid, some housing services, and they have a social worker attached to their file because the social worker knows and is talking with them more regularly and can see if something sounds amiss. And I can give you an example of that locally, without getting into details of the outcome. One of the social workers alerted her supervisor, client was living in a facility in this county, and all of a sudden was only getting a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. And it seems like staff were quitting, and it was a new outfit taking over an agency. And so then that gets escalated to our people that we have at the state, and then to the OIG's office. So there are occasions where if a social worker is attached to a client who's vulnerable, they are sometimes the first to hear about it and then can sound the alarm to the appropriate people.
Thanks.
Mr. Chair?
Mhm.
Yeah, we had some correspondence back and forth, you and I, a couple of
Mhm.
years ago. I was
Yeah.
asking about whether you call them undocumented or illegal,
Mhm.
to try to get a number of how many that were actually in Pine County.
Yeah.
And you had told me there was more than a dozen, less than?
8.
It turned out to be 8.
Yes, that was the final number from DHS. And that's something that I do want to point out. Commissioner Waltham and I have exchanged several emails about that topic. And this is not a number that we can get from our systems. This is a number that we have to reach out to DHS and ask them. And at the time, I believe this was maybe in July-ish, June-ish, that you asked that question, and maybe May, and the number was 8.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, anything else?
Thank you very much.
Thanks. All right, we'll move on to commissioner updates. Highway 23 Coalition.
Yes, I was able to attend that, and maybe as they were looking at funding for this next year and also support. One good thing out of that is they did lower well, let me back up. There's an initiative of pushing towards, you know, there's different sections of Highway 23 that have been built out, but the northeast corridor which is what touches Pine County, you know, from basically Foley up to the I-35 intersection. That is where they're really focusing on. And also part of building support is, you know, the small towns and small cities and townships along the way. So they actually lowered the fee substantially to be a part of that, down to like $50. So For some of these small towns, that makes a difference instead of 500. So that was probably a good thing.
Roger, I got a question for you. Because the landfill, I mentioned that at the landfill board meeting last month, and they would be interested probably to join because
That would be
They've got-
great.
they've got semis every day delivering product and hauling product out of there that have to get on and off Highway 20.
Okay.
And sometimes those loads go to St. Cloud. Sometimes a lot of them come from the Hinckley transfer station, to take 23, so. The $50 would be awesome.
Yeah, I'll follow up on
Okay.
that.
All right. Labor negotiations with Teamsters, it's our first round with them. It was pretty quick, right? I think we're,
We're in the heat of it right now.
yep. Think we meet with them again this week or next week? I don't know. We got a whole.
We have a whole
pile.
bunch this week.
Okay, Pine County Zoning Board,
Was canceled.
okay. Snake River Fur Post meeting.
Okay, I hope all of you have been to the Fur Post at some point in your life, but it's just west of town, a couple miles. It's been a historic site for 60 years probably. Yeah, it's run by the Minnesota Historical Society and due to some budget shortfalls at the society, they closed the Fur Post. Kind of unceremoniously, with no outreach to the community at all or Pine County. So, there's some concerned people because of its economic impact to the area and stuff. And so there was some people gathered. I was part of it. Kelly was part of it. Anyway, mostly to formulate some questions to get the Historical Society to sit down with this group of people. Representative Nelson and Senator Rarick were there, and they're very interested to know, how come this is happening. But anyway, we have a follow-up meeting with the Historical Society coming up. Like, you remember the date?
Either next week or the week after.
Yeah, I think they're still working on the date. We'll keep you posted when we know more.
Okay. And is it closed indefinitely?
It's
Or
closed,
just for the winter?
it's closed indefinitely right now. It's just closed. That's the same thing cause they typically will close down in the fall.
Mhm.
Then maybe just have the visitor center open for special meetings or something, but it is closed. There are no staff there.
Okay,
Did they still get the signs on the interstate for turn the radio station? Didn't they have signs on the interstate, turn radio to 1610 or something for?
And I do
Is that
not,
still
know-
active?
I do not know that.
Oh,
I looked for the signs, but I couldn't see them, JJ.
I
but
got you. Yeah. Just always, when you have that kind of support and advertising out on the interstates, it gives you a little bit better chance of survival in business when
It
you
wasn't,
got the-
it wasn't
you got the
because nobody
state
went
working
there,
for
it was because they had to they lost some funding that they traditionally have had and they had to close this and they closed the Lindbergh House in Little Falls. Are the two that I know that they closed.
It was a semi-political decisions on who
Yeah.
got closed and who didn't.
Pretty much, yeah. That's what I read between the lines.
said the Lindbergh House also then in Little Falls. Good.
Yeah. Thank you. That's the two that I've heard.
Sure. Thank you.
all right. And Snake River Watershed Plan Partnership got canceled. NLX,
LX, I was out of town.
okay. HRA EDA,
I went, so I'm just gonna, this time I'm gonna give you the numbers on the year first. So the Sandstone and Finlayson Manors, I'll put them together. Just kind of how they're operating. you know, their net worth is like $147,000 plus. And through October 2025, the income into that property was 300, I'll call it 302,000, with expenses running about 179,000. So they have a net income of about 123,000. So they're doing pretty good. The North Court operations, you know, there's a loan involved and stuff, and that one's running a little tighter. But the board is very engaged in how to manage things, and Kelly presented at the meeting how to handle their investments and how to shift some funding around to handle some of this stuff. So the buildings are occupied. Sandstone's gonna have 2 down for a month, but there's already 2 applications coming in because they're just doing some cleanup or something on that. And then the hot topic was that, right, maybe you didn't hear, but there's the woodpecker damage at the North Court so they're gonna get plan to fix it up, and then some parking lot work and stuff in the future, so. But they're doing a good job.
Okay. Is there any other meetings?
I
Anybody?
have another,
Yep.
Maggie, we met yesterday.
Okay.
We had one meeting this year. The goals, they moved quite a ways. I'm not gonna go through all, but you know, it's a stream, lakes, forestry and all that, but the forestry is doing good. Acreage for the farming, they have a lot of enrolled stuff happening there. They're not much on lakes, cause there's not a lot of lakes right there in that chunk, but there's some, but the stream work is the biggest thing, you know, that whole Nemadji and that big steep stuff that goes to 23 and all that stuff. So that's a constant problem for them. And then the new initiative they did is they flew some drones down like the Nemadji and the Black Hoof or Blackfoot or whatever it is. And the trees that fell and the turbulence they're causing causing gouging and stuff. So they're working with within their program how to figure out how they can, which ones need the priority work for the erosion that head to Highway 23 and that kind of stuff. So, but they're doing good. So,
Anybody else got any other meetings they went to? Anything other? Otherwise, take a peek at your upcoming meetings. AMC is next week. And, yeah, a lot of stuff going on there. Otherwise,
Taxation.
truth and taxation coming up.
Okay, next.
Yep. Yeah, I got a lot of them circled. Otherwise, we'll declare the meeting adjourned.